Before we move on to another one, can we hear this one real quick?
Yeah. So this one, my tremolo's kind of always on. This one, I don't know if this is coming through the monitor. Yeah, so what I mainly use this one for is I have a separate pedal board, which we can get to, which is just a DI fuzz. I wanted that sound of just a fuzz, like plugged into a console kind of DI thing without the amp. Tried all kinds of stuff. I tried different fuzz pedals through my amp. I tried a separate amp going directly into the amp and diming it.
Yeah.
Couldn't get that sound, so we set up a separate pedal board with just a DI, just a fuzz into like a tiniest bit of reverb direct into the PA, and that's when this guitar usually comes out. It just has that like. So that's mainly, there's a tiny bit of reverb on it, but
and that, imagine that's how you recorded the song. The song was recorded directly.
So the song that I did that actually
console?
Eric actually played on that one, and but I do that fuzz sound on a lot of stuff. That like DI, you know, that's my favorite fuzz sound. If I could do that all night, I would do that all night. You know, I've done that on like both our albums, a million things. So.
Well, let's dive into your pedal board, Adrian. I know we kind of hit the sideboard here with the direct input stuff and the fuzz, but is the POG kind of adding to that 335?
Yeah, there's it's one part of the set where I'm using that fuzz, but on the album I did octaves on the guitar on like a fuzz DI thing.
Okay.
And on that same song on Ice Cream, so that was the POG was the most compact thing I could get. That little, you know, nano POG. Yeah.
Everything's at noon, so I can kind of.
No, so they're not at noon. So that's actually funny. Everybody thinks all my things are at noon. This is a little trick somebody showed me.
Oh.
You just set them. And I mean, it's not that advanced, but somebody just told me about this. So you set them where you want them, and then for easier, you just mark that's noon, and then so it doesn't matter where the line actually is. Just somebody else has to set them to noon. So it only works with certain ones.
Okay.
But yeah, they're not actually at noon. Like this one, these type of knobs don't work like that. But anyways, yeah, so they're not at noon.
Okay.
A lot of people tell me, they're like, man, you just set everything at noon. I'm like, nah, it's
fooled me.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, oh, everything at noon for this.
Yeah.
That sounds just like the Black Pumas. But let's move over to the main board here and kind of explain how you're using everything. We obviously touched on the Flint. Is that an always on thing?
The Strymon used to be always on because I always had that reverb. I used to love those Holy Grail spring reverbs. I've tried the most boutiquey of the most boutiquey fanciest spring reverbs, and I always come back to those. These just get it right. You know, I've had people, you know, chew me out about whatever. I don't care. It sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So now the Strymon has actually become a second reverb for more reverb on certain songs.
Okay.
But if I had like a desert island one pedal I could do, it would be the Strymon for sure, because I do still love that reverb. But that tremolo gets used probably once, like every song or every other song.
Now the thing with the Flint, and this might not be something you might dip down to check out, is like, do you have a preferred setting? Because like those Flints have like the 50s, the 60s style.
Yeah, I usually do the top one, which I think is covered. I forget what it is. Well, right now it's not on the top one, but they're all pretty cool. Sometimes I'll get crazy and go down to that 65 photo. It's a little more. I think that's the one that's like a little more bubbly, like
chewy, yeah. And can we hear actually both reverbs together? Like
yeah. So I always have that reverb on.
The Holy Grail's always on.
Yeah, I do love the reverb off the amps, but when we're on tour and doing festivals and playing backline where the amps have been just getting beat up all day long, it wasn't reliable. Sometimes the reverbs don't work. Sometimes they're totally different. So I just I can rely on this. You know,
good bass line.
So, you know, there's a song like our song Fire that I need like extra stupid reverb, and I'll kick that one on and it do like a. That's the extra.
And can we hear the tremolo quick?
Yeah. So I switched it down to no, I put it back up. This is the one I normally use. And then this one I dig too.
Oh yeah.
That one, but that one doesn't always work for the live show. It's like almost a little too rhythmic or something.
Yeah, and I want to get this on the record because I don't know if it came up in the last one where I did with Esteban and Alejandro, whom Hermanos Gutierrez, they both have Flints, but you turned them onto it. So
I
like
did,
that
yeah.
record that everyone's going to be enjoying next month in May
I
when
need
it comes
royalties, bros.
out. You turned them onto it. They said that was the pedal they couldn't live without now.
Yeah. Shout out to my boys.
Yeah. Well, let's keep cruising along. We see an EQ pedal. How do you use that?
So yeah, Fender makes these Acoustasonics, and what I really like about them is that you know, you can run it through an amp, and I do like the sound of an acoustic through an amp.
Yeah.
For the kind of music we play, I'm not, you know, out here playing, you know, singer-songwriter stuff. I like the vibe of an amp, and on our album, actually, quite a few of the acoustic guitars have gone through amps.
Really?
So yeah, I was able to do this. It's compact, it travels well and stuff, and it's pretty cool. I did realize as soon as we started using it that I did need to EQ it.
Yeah, congrats.
And actually, back to Hermanos, Alejandro uses an EQ pedal too, and I was asking him about his, and he because he switches guitars as well, he just like quickly does that. So I had to kind of EQ. It was running a little bit hotter. I was able to control the level there, and I forget to turn this thing on all the time. The other day, Brian was like, "Man, it was on and you didn't notice." I'm like, "Yeah." So this I haven't quite embraced the EQ pedal yet, but in theory, at some point, yeah.
Yeah, it's there at some point. Now moving down on the bottom row, what do we got next?
Yeah. So this Epoch Boost, this Catalan bred, I always had an EP booster, which I love as another like kind of desert island pedal. Just that a little bit of extra push, you know, for leads. And when you have a kind of a lower wattage amp, it breaks up kind of cool too, and sometimes I like that sound. Then I discovered this one, and you just have a little more control because you have the boost and you have the preamp,
so
you
have
almost two levels, and you can kind of dial it in a little bit more. If the EP booster had that, I would have kept the EP booster, but this is a slight upgrade for me.
I mean, hey, and it's working at the high noon settings like Adrian prefers.
Everything's high noon, yeah.
So what's the Line 6 pedal? This is a gem.
So I needed a tap tempo delay pedal.
Okay.
We have a song that I always use delay on, but sometimes our tempo kind of fluctuates. We don't play to click tracks or anything like that. So sometimes I like to be able to dial it in as Eric starts the song. I'm like over here tapping. There's not a ton of them that are in as compact as this that sound good.
Okay.
You know, there's some that have like a separate foot switch and stuff like that, but I don't like overkill on the pedal board. This one sounds great. It has tap tempo. You know, I like simple pedals, as you can tell. I don't like too many knobs and stuff. Even this one, which I love the sound of it and stuff, but these tiny little knobs, sometimes, I mean, if one thing gets moved like the tiniest bit and I don't check it and I'll start the song, it's like completely different. So yeah, you can see I like 2-3 knobs, one knob if possible. Yeah.
Park fuzz. Can we hear how you're running that?
Yeah, I mean, I used to have 2 or 3 fuzz pedals here for different songs, and the Park Fuzz has just become my jam. When it first came out, I remember a friend of mine had one in the studio, and he told me he's like, yeah, it'd be a good studio pedal. It's not quite a live pedal, but I just still tried it out. Love it. It's just become, I have a ton of other fuzz pedals that I really love that I use in the studio, but fuzz pedals are so finicky and not reliable live. Yeah. Some are too thin, some are too intense, some are too, and I've just found, again, they're not really at high noon, but this gets used on, you know, the whole set, and it's now just the only fuzz I have in here. And you can really kind of control it with volume too, you know, like, so.
It sounds, just based on how you were attacking the string, it sounds really responsive.
Yeah.
You can kind of dial it in based on even how
you're
you're
like Nigel from Spinal Tap here playing fuzz for you. Yeah. You hear the sustain.
No, well, I mean, they're making a Spinal Tap too, so who knows?
Oh yeah, I'll be there day one, yeah.
Echo Rec.
The Echo Rec is, I needed another completely different option. I'm honestly still kind of tweaking that one. Okay. Totally love it. I love all Catalan bred stuff. I use it a lot in the studio. I'm still tweaking this one, and this is another one that's like any subtle movement will completely change the sound. Absolutely love the sound of it. It's kind of, finally, right now I've been finally finding the right setting for it, but I'm kind of still tweaking this one like every show. But it's a whole separate option. This is more of a rhythmic, you know.
Because that Echo Rec's trying to get after a tape echo, right?
Yeah, the Vincent Echo Rec. So yeah, this one I've been using a little bit, just with some slide stuff for effect and just a little bit more dimension.
And the jam pedal here, the one knobber.
Yeah, so we have a song on our new record that has like heavy phase guitar, and that one was a vintage, like maybe a Maestro that I have in the studio. I can't remember what it was, but I try to keep things that are reliable, and where I don't like to bring like vintage pedals, especially in particular, don't always do the job live for me. But I was wanting something simple, and tried a handful of phase pedals, and they're almost like too complicated. I went to a store in Austin called Austin Guitar House. I explained to them what I was looking for, and I was like, I don't want 100 options. I want it as simple as possible. And they were like, this one has one knob. And I was like, there you go. Tried it, and totally.
And I imagine the knob is set for just control the speed.
But actually, I think it does a combination where it actually pushes a couple of things, but I don't even remember. It sounded good, it worked. I marked it and left it there.
Yeah, add the cart.
Yeah.
And the full tone, is that a wah or expression? That's
wah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got turned on to I've always had a wah pedal on here. I like a lot of late 60s, early 70s guitar players, and always had a wah pedal. I don't necessarily use it. I use it always for rhythmic stuff. I don't really use it for a lot of lead stuff, not like a lot of super Hendrixy or anything like that, but more like, that kind of stuff. But I was at a friend's studio recently, and he had one of these, played it, and I fell in love with it. I texted Brian. I'm like, man, I just got turned on to this full tone thing. And then I Googled it, and everybody's like, yeah, those are like the coolest. But I feel like it's a lot warmer. The range, it stays warm through the whole range, and you can kind of dial it in, which I haven't even done. You can really dial in the buffer zone and all this stuff, but it really stays warm through the whole sweep. So I just converted to these like 2 months ago.
The one thing I noticed, just how you're using it real quick there, it almost reminds me of a roto vibe or something like Jerry Cantrell would use with Alice in Chains, just almost more vibe than a standard wah. Yeah. And same thing with the jam pedal there. I know it's a phaser, but again, it reminded me more of a vibe, kind of lushness.
The other cool thing with wah that I like is, it's an instant tone switch for just, just like melodic kind of tenor guitar lines, as they say. Like it just cuts through.
Speaking of another Texas guitarist, he loves his wah. He has it on a lot of times. I don't know if it's an auto wah or wah, but Mark from Corinne Band.
Yeah, it's a big part of his sound. Yeah, man, he's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, he sets it and forgets it.